So,
So,
Converse are a type of shoe, right?
yes, to my knowledge.
So, would there be like a competitor company called Inverse?
I'd like to think that I would name such a competitor company as Contrapositive, just for the giggles.
Yes. Because you'd have to think about it. Like nobody would like question it, but you would know. Like, haha, fools. They know not what I refer to, and then the loyal
Unless
customers.
they have taken a logic class in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it would be an interesting way to start a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Contrapositive. How can I not do what you didn't want me to do?
Steady on. What now? I don't like half of it.
Don't be unstable.
Yeah. I don't know what we were talking about.
I don't either.
Or that reference, rather. I mean, I started the previous conversation, so I hope I... Okay, that's not... I can start a conversation and not know what I'm talking about. That happens a lot, yes.
Yes,
Quite
right.
Yeah.
Just vague British noises when you don't know what else to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, quiet.
That tracks for our characters.
What character am I playing?
Well, that's a good question.
What character am I?
What is like if you were to typecast Nathan,
What character am?
Yeah.
What character?
What?
What?
Yes. But no, if you were to typecast Nathan, what type of character would be the best role, do you suppose?
Would be he.
Yes.
Ooh, I don't know.
I would be the side character that gets memed to hell.
Yeah.
But also memes to hell.
Right, exactly.
It's sort of a those two aspects feed each other.
Indeed. It's a
So you're
self-sustaining loop.
The Rocket of any given universe, really. Like Rocket the
At least I
Raccoon.
would strive to be, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be where I would want to land. Aside from the being
Just
a trash
the
panda
sort of-
butt bit.
The chaotic neutral character, I suppose.
Chaotic neutral to maybe a little bit on the good side.
Yeah. I guess
Yeah.
roughly.
Although I feel like Riley... See, I want to say lawful, but also you can be chaotic when
I
you
am
want
very
to also.
chaotic. Very much of it really depends on the situation.
Right.
You know, really, I wouldn't classify myself as lawful good by any means.
I think I'd either be
Neutral good is probably the place to go for me.
Mhm.
Chaotic, depending on the situation.
I think my character would be like Cabbage's guy from
My cabbages!
My cabbages. But I don't know where I fall on that the scale of the chaotic neutral.
It would be fun to
Lawful.
like create D&D characters at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had a good DM, like try to actually play a little bit of a game. That'd be an interesting thing I would like to try at some point.
Yeah. I love those memes though, where it's more of a Venn diagram of like 4 different characters, and you just have like that one. What was it? Caillou, Mr. Clean, One Punch Man.
That has nothing to do with
Saitama,
alignment. That's
and,
just character mashup.
And Charlie Brown, right? But it was like laid out like it was one of those.
My personal favorite one of those is the Yoda, Obama, Keanu Reeves,
yes.
and Thanos.
Yes.
Lord Obama Keanu was the very center.
Yes.
I may have seen that. I've seen enough random stuff on the internet that I can't recall it directly, but I
Not to
must have
mention
gotten a
your chat.
good nose exhale.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yes. Well,
Is this the first time I've been back in studio, or did we?
No,
we did that last
I was here. Time just goes so weird when you don't have things going on during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how long I've been here anymore.
Yeah, it's
It's been 3
It's
years.
only been a week, but
Yeah.
it feels like much longer than that.
because it doesn't seem like that long ago you were here for Easter break.
That might be part of it too.
Yeah, because like your absence has been very. In the fall, there was sort of a longer period, but then you were here for like a whole month for Christmas break, and then you were gone for like a month and a half for Lent, and then you came back for Easter. And
In terms of like number of episodes, like between uploads and stuff, there haven't been very many where like
can't be more than a dozen.
in the last 2 months you've probably been here for half of the podcast we've
Yeah,
recorded.
it seems about like that.
Can't be more than like a dozen total where you've been out of studio. We
This
could go count
semester,
that.
anyway.
yeah,
Yeah,
over the course
yeah.
of a semester.
Last
So
semester,
far.
I mean, there was a bunch in a row.
Yep.
Just because there was no major holidays that you had to come home for until Christmas, and then you were here.
Mm-hmm. It's bound. I mean, obviously, that's bound to change.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Next year will not be a COVID year, so Christmas break will only be 3 weeks-ish instead of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So
That'll make a difference.
Indeed.
But I guess
By
stay tuned.
subtracting the number of episodes that Riley is here on.
I mean, as far as the audience is
Difference.
concerned, they won't really be able to tell unless we say.
I don't know. I feel like you can really tell when I'm here and when I'm not.
I suppose.
I feel like
Listening to myself when I listen back on the episodes, I can definitely tell.
yeah,
Like-
because you're feeding off of us in the same room
Yeah.
using those audio cues.
And also, like, the way my sound works with my headset on is just like, I don't know. And I try not to be too loud because I'm usually recording in the evenings and I live in a community where you can hear everyone in the hall at all times, pretty much. So
It's like gotta love all that stone and brick.
concrete.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is I've noticed like when we're doing remote sessions, we tend to sort of get really quiet towards the end of the episode. And then usually also compounded by the time of day we typically record. This is
Right.
relatively early.
There's just generally a more tangible energy in the atmosphere when we're recording in the same room. We can actively look at each other in real time.
Audibly
without
look at each other. One might say.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for derailing my train of thought there, James. That was very,
Always.
very good of you. I
Always.
appreciate you.
You got it. Well, I mean, we've all been in the same house, but how have we been doing, boys?
For the people at home, all two of you who are...
Oh, soon to be one.
Oh,
Are we getting live on the podcast about that? Well, I suppose.
I mean,
I mean, it's
they're the only
it's
ones
common
listening to it
knowledge to our
anyway.
whole listener base.
That's
already.
true.
So.
It better be. Otherwise, we have some real issues here. But yes, we.
our friend John, that you might recognize as being
John.
somebody on the
As-
podcast occasionally, and also one of the listeners probably sitting right next to you or sitting in the place where you're sitting. Hello.
Hello.
Anyway, he's getting
Who has
engaged.
also been on the podcast once, Faith.
Yes, Faith.
Yes.
He's getting engaged. She was in the Christmas episode.
Yes.
She was. She has already gotten engaged to John.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
As of the recording.
that has happened and is done.
Yes, in the past. So because of the way we're recording this week. But yeah, no. So cool
so
stuff happening.
our listener base is going from 2 down to 1
Yes.
because the 2 will become one flesh, as we all know.
Indeed, that is biblically.
We have
how it
notified them
goes.
that we're not entirely relying on them for our listener growth in the future, but that will be a contributing factor.
Might as well. Yeah.
While we're talking about, we're all thinking it, but we're not gonna,
Give them a little bit of time.
yeah, a Patreon isn't going to develop itself. So
On Demand has also stated that she has listened pretty much to all of our episodes at this point.
okay. So
All of our episodes currently on demand.
Thanks,
So-
On Demand.
thanks on demand.
You know who you,
You know
are.
who you are.
We're referencing you again.
Yes.
Don't you
Without-
like this when we single you out from the 2 listeners?
Who's like the? Oh, I suppose you could say on demand and on demand's TiVo. Or on demand subscriber, I guess. I'm trying to
I'm
think.
not
what's
sure
the
how
proper-
you would classify that.
Yeah.
Is he the source of the on-demand, or is he a patron of the on-demand?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. I mean, to some degree, it's both.
Yes.
Like
But,
like John being on the podcast, speaking it, and then listening to it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a feedback loop of sorts, I suppose.
Well, so is that description of being both consumer and presenter of on demand,
Mm-hmm.
and describing on demand as
doubtless rolling her eyes at this point.
Oh yes, that is what we strive to do, as ever, always.
and we got a chance to torment her in person recently, which hasn't happened for me, at least, for a long time. So.
It's
And-
been about an equal length for the two of us, also.
Right, yeah. So, and if there's anybody else listening who has no idea what we're talking about, hello and thank you for listening to our podcast. We need more listeners.
Maybe we should stop talking about all the people we know that listen, so that the people who we don't know that listen won't be bored during these parts.
Someday, if we get real spicy.
Tell you what, if they don't like it, they can send us an email.
Yeah, sure.
At palladiumpapist@gmail.com.
At palladiumpapist@gmail.com.
But
But in all seriousness, if you don't like that, you got to tell us. 'Cause
Yeah,
we're just
please.
going to keep doing it.
We're just going to keep doing it unless
We
you
need-
tell us not to.
we need feedback. And, you never know. Someday, if we get more listeners than just the people we can talk to at the drop of a hat, or the press of a satellite TV remote, as it were, we could do like Q&As or something, like, with like submitted questions or, well, actually submitted suggestions for topics. So you never know. There's all sorts of cool things we could do with this podcast if we get more listeners.
Speaking of suggestions and telling us not to do things,
we're talking about anime today. We're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
What are we talking about today, Riley? We're getting super serial about...
We are getting super serial about Code Geass.
All right.
One day, 3 lads from North Dakota were bitten by a radioactive television, and with their powers combined, they are super serial!
So,
I like that transition.
now
That was actually a really fitting transition.
There we go.
Because the part of the premise of the show is that this guy has the ability to compel people by telling them to do things.
Oh,
The power of Christ.
so it's multi-layered.
It is multi-layered, and you didn't even know it.
I love it.
There we go.
I'm gonna situate this laptop in a place where I can see it and still talk into my microphone.
That's ideal, yeah. Audibly situates microphone.
Anyway, so we're talking about Code Geass. We're getting super serial about it. And this show was... the first season, I believe, came out in 2006, and the second in 2008. There's only 2. There are a few OVAs and stuff that dive a little more into the lore, but we're not going to get into those because there's more OVA time than there is running time of the whole rest of the series.
And at this point in the podcast...
OVA being like 1 or 2 episodes spliced into a movie, right?
Pretty much, that's the gist of it.
Okay.
That's, yeah. For those of you
To
who
like
don't
an hour-ish movie. They're just like really long episodes that are kind of original content riffing
So
on.
think like the Phineas and Ferb movies, but it's
Yes.
anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phineas and Ferb is just it's just tri-state anime.
Yeah.
So Code Geass is set in this kind of alternate future with respect to 2006, more like the present now.
Yeah.
2020s-ish, like all these shows in the early 2000s were.
Imagine if we got to
And
2020.
A world in which a Britain analog has essentially conquered the entire world, more or less. They're called Britannia.
That's
Rule
not
Britannia.
riffing on anything at
That's
all.
definitely not Britain, nope. And Lelouch v. Britannia is the main character, and he is a prince of the Britannian Empire.
Totally not England.
But it's definitely England. They aren't even trying to suggest that it's not.
Ah,
I mean, it's pretty... They just called it something different for no apparent reason.
makes sense.
And he lives with his sister Nunnally and his father Emperor Charles Z. Britannia. They have these weird prefixes for their middle name. I don't get it. I don't understand.
It's like they looked at like a British phone book and I was like, okay.
But it's like Z.I. Charles Z. Britannia Z.I. It's weird. Audibly spelling.
Probably
And,
high school English.
Maybe. And so their mother is killed in a mysterious shooting, and Nunnally is sort of permanently crippled by she gets caught in the crossfire.
So clearly Britain.
So clearly Britain.
Anyway.
Lelouch is kind of mad that his father isn't doing anything to resolve the situation, so he renounces his right to the throne and moves to Japan to the care of the Kurorugi family, and he becomes good friends with Suzaku, one of the kids in that family.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all before the start of the show happens. And when we begin, Lelouch is, he's just playing chess, like you do when you're a prince. This guy's like an absolute genius, and he's a very good strategist. And he beats some very talented chess players and stuff to prove that he's a smart kid, prodigal, one might say.
Yes, prodigal.
Yes. He's not such a big fan of aristocracy and all that jazz, given that his father is kind of the emperor that took over the whole world and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he also wants to take over the whole world and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because in his estimation, that's the only way to ensure peace, is a totalitarian ruling of everybody under one dominion.
That's never gone wrong before.
No. Nobody's ever failed to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, he is kind of a nice, caring guy. He goes out of his way to help his friends at school and stuff, and so he's like kind of this strange dichotomy of personality. He's really nice to people he knows and likes, but also has these kind of radical ideas about how the world should be set up.
So like a libertarian at a soup kitchen.
Something like that. That's a great episode title right there.
A libertarian in the soup store?
For those who don't know, there's a reference to a sketch called I'm at Soup, and it's based on a parody of
We've
Code
probably
Geass.
talked about it on the podcast.
We've probably
at some point.
done.
We haven't explained its origins, though.
True, but we've done it.
We've definitely done
This
it.
is the
I'm at
origin.
Soup.
There was a dub of the anime in parody that had that as the sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that has nothing to do with it at the
It
moment.
has nothing to do with anything.
The more you know.
So, Lelouch is chilling. He gets caught up in a terrorist attack, like you do, and he somehow survives. And he's like sitting there next to this mecha, because this is they all fight with mechas.
It's Japan.
It's Japan. We gotta have big robot fights.
Oh yeah.
Turns out they have actual mechas in Japan now.
Oh yeah, they built one.
Yeah.
And functional and stuff. Anyway,
Like science fiction always predates science fact.
Thanks, Natalie Portwoman.
thanks, Natalie Portwoman. Anyway, so this strange girl with green hair gets out of the mecha and says, "I'm dying, but you can save me. If you make a contract with me, I don't know why I'm an old wizard."
Sounds kind of old wizardy, but she's not.
She's like, "Make a contract with me." And he's like, "Okay." And then he receives the Geass, which is this power that when you look into someone's eyes and give them an order, they are compelled to obey you. And so he looks at all the soldiers who are like, "Hey, you're with the terrorists, aren't you?" And he says, "Terminate yourselves." And they're like, "Okay."
Goodness.
And so they do, because they can't not.
And this guy's really a libertarian. Holy crap.
Execute Order 66 yourself.
Oh.
Yeah, that. So he grabs one of the big mecha bots and starts to be the leader of the terrorist group and reforms them into this freedom fighting and protecting the weak kind of libertarian Robin Hood stuff. So he begins to win successive victories against the Britannian Empire, all while being a nice high school student, like you do.
Mm-hmm.
Leading that double life.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And as he's continuing to progress, he gets stopped by this Lancelot, which is a new model of the mechas. Unbeknownst to him, it's being piloted by his childhood friend Suzaku. So he doesn't know that, and he's adopted this persona. His name, like his stage name, as it were, is Zero, because he wants to protect his identity to use his princely powers for political maneuvering and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a persona, not like
Joker
like
persona,
gun.
like gun, but
He doesn't summon a manifestation of his gun.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes to question his brother after that to figure out what happened to his mom. And the brother doesn't know, but he says, your half siblings Cornelia and Schneisel might know something. He's like, okay, die.
Oh,
Yeah, so he's just slowly getting on the downward spiral. And so after that, he's kind of continuing with the Order of the Black Knights, trying to free the land. And he meets back up with the green-haired lady, who we find out is named C2, but spelt CC, because there's two C's.
I see.
Yeah, there's that. And she's immortal. Yeah. So, like you be immortal. You can't really convey those mystical magical powers without being immortal or something.
Some kind of higher being.
And you know she's different because she has green hair.
It's an anime, you can never tell.
The rules, I have green hair. Everyone else has normal hair, except the Britannians, who some of them have pink hair.
Because British people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, British people.
You never know what you're going to get.
You just never know.
No one expects the British Empire again.
And so Lelouch at this point discovers that Suzaku is the pilot of the Lancelot, and he says, maybe I can win him over to my side. So I'm going to lure him into a trap to get his attention and stuff. And then Schneisel decides, I'm going to carpet bomb this place that you are, because I know you're going to be there. And he's like, okay, this is not fun. Let's get everybody out of here. So they get everybody out of here and wake up on this random island with Lelouch and Suzaku and Colin, who's this one of the other freedom fighter ladies who's important but not. She's kind of there. And Princess Euphemia, who was also they were meeting at this kind of military base thing. So Euphemia was there doing some diplomatic talks. So she got caught up in the chaos. And she and Lelouch were always good friends, She's a kind-hearted lady and, wants to genuinely achieve some good in the world. But she discovers that Zero is in fact Lelouch, but decides to keep it a secret because she kind of sort of believes in what he's doing, even though she doesn't entirely agree with his methods. Because who would?
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Lelouch, apparently.
Lelouch.
I mean, at the end of the day, he probably just wants to smoke weed and be left alone about it.
Yeah, that's all he's after.
At the end of the day, it's nighttime.
Yeah, he made a contract with a lady with green hair. I mean, we all know where this is going.
How do you think she stays immortal? Come on.
Anyway, so Euphemia is kind of a bit won over by his arguments, and so she decides to create this semi-autonomous zone for the Japanese people to have their own place and call themselves Japanese again. Because when you're a subject of the Britannian Empire, you're just the number corresponding to the order in which you were conquered. So the Japanese are the 11s. And so if you called yourself something other than an 11, you were dealt with summarily. Mm-hmm. So she's like, these people want to be on their own and do their own thing, and it's not really right that we should occupy their land. And
Self-determination,
libertarianism and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so he tells her about the Geass because he's trying to establish some trust, and makes this offhand remark about, it's not like I would order you to, genocide the Japanese. Unbeknownst to him, he had accidentally turned on his Geass.
Uh-oh.
So he ordered her to kill all of the Japanese.
That's not
which
cool.
she then proceeds to announce to the entire military that they are to kill all of the Japanese.
So definitely libertarian. Anyway.
that doesn't have sense.
No, that doesn't work. Never mind.
So he's like, well, crap. This didn't go the way I wanted it to. But I guess I can maybe hopefully salvage this, because he figures out that his Geass is permanently turned on and he can't turn it off. So there's no fixing it. So he kind of takes the opportunity to assassinate Euphemia and claim this as a reason to go on full rebellion, instead of taking it as like an underground sort of terrorist thing. It's now a legitimate political movement because they're fighting back against someone who attempted to kill all of them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So he makes what he can of the bad situation. So yeah, that's no fun. But we're here now.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes and attacks the Tokyo settlement, which is an important, center of governance for the Britannians. And he beats up another one of his step-siblings, but then C2 informs him that Nunnally has been kidnapped, and so he leaves the battlefield to go rescue her, and leaves the Black Knights leaderless, and they start to lose the battle. And one of the smart science kids is a loyalist of the Britannians, and she's created this gigantic bomb that can destroy all of Tokyo. And she's like, hey, government, let's use this to destroy all of Tokyo.
The thing it was designed to do?
It's Japan after all.
It is Japan. We've got to have nuclear bombs in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
So she's about to use it, but then there is some events, and she doesn't, because she realizes that that's not a good thing to do. Just carpet, blow up everybody that's here, even though it would get rid of Lelouch. It would Zero, that they don't know is Lelouch. And she's like a classmate of his, so if she ever found out, that would maybe cause some conflicting feelings, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
A bit.
That's not foreshadowing or anything.
No, of course not.
And one of the other higher-up military dudes comes and fights them, and C2 does a mecha kamikaze to blow up both of them, so they're out of the picture, and Lelouch tries to continue on his own and gets stopped by Suzaku, and they shoot each other, and that's done.
Oh.
And the season's over.
Oh.
There you go.
And at this point, you weren't sure there was going to be a season 2. So you're like,
Because
okay,
it's 2 years till season 8.
that's just,
2008
yeah.
numbers.
You're like, okay, that was a weird ending.
In 2006, there's not a whole lot of internet stuff to go off of at this point.
But after that, in season 2, Lelouch wakes up, and he has apparently no memory of his being a prince, or that he had a sister, or that he was the leader of the Black Knights. He's just some smart high school dude doing high school stuff. So he's just chilling there, and the Black Knights decide to hatch a scheme to restore his memories so he can be their leader again. Because they've proven that they're pretty incompetent without him, and they're not really going to get anywhere with their freedom movement if he isn't leading them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go on a mission, and surprise, surprise, C2 isn't dead. For reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Reasons. And she fixes his memories, and he reassumes the mantle of Zero. And he continues his rebellion and starts with another mission to blow up Tokyo, because we've really been on that tack for a while.
May as well
And we
stick
haven't
with
gotten
it.
around to doing it yet. So we want to blow it up because it's an important military place. It would be a big loss for the Britannians. So let's blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
And Lelouch, his identity is revealed to the Black Knights as a whole. So they're his identity of being the prince. That is, they knew he was some high school kid, but they didn't know he was the son of the emperor. And so they're like, I kind of doubt your loyalty, because you're, a son of the emperor. You're probably trying to screw us over here. He's like, nah.
No, I'm not trying to set a new regime where I'm in charge.
No.
That's not my end goal.
That's not what's going on.
What are you talking
I
about?
only have the purest of intentions.
And his father, he finds out, also has some Geass powers.
I just want a house in the suburbs with a patch of grass.
Did he make...
He has a strange friend named V2,
Spelt VV?
spelled VV, that he got his connection to C's world from,
Naming schemes, man.
which is this sort of like collective consciousness of all the humans that have ever lived or something. They don't really explain it very
It's
well.
just the Force.
It's kind of like the Force, but just people.
Okay.
So, Jedi mind tricks.
Jedi mind tricks. And since Lelouch and he are both highly connected to this place, they have the
psychic
ability to meet up there and, duke it out with their magical powers and stuff. And so Lelouch, at this point, has kind of realized that his whole scheme is going down the drain. And the way it's going now, it's never going to work out. So he, as himself, not Zero, proclaims that he's going to be the next emperor of the world. And he clandestinely, meanwhile, makes an agreement with Suzaku. We don't really know the details of it yet, but we will. And so he attempts to take over this big doomsday device that one of the Britannian military dudes has invented. And
Is he going to blow up Tokyo?
he's going to blow up Tokyo.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yep, that's what we're about here.
Yep.
And the plan is for Suzaku to stop him while dressed as Zero. So Zero is going to stop Lelouch from being the tyrannical dictator of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes over there and stops him, and he's become the kind of target. Lelouch has become the target of all the hatred of the world at this point, because he's kind of wronged just about everybody that there is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Zero is the one to take him out. So Suzaku at the end kills him and kind of establishes a new government, because the previous one was kind of in chaos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it ends.
So Lelouch, like, for real dies?
Lelouch for real dies as far as we can tell.
Uh-huh.
They made a movie like last year or something that kind of did an alternate what if Lelouch didn't die thing.
Uh-huh.
What if Lelouch was not kill?
Verily. Yeah, that's the pared down plot of Code Geass. There's a lot more stuff in there, but
I'm sure.
that's kind of the main beats. So, cool things. One of my favorite cool things that they've done is this ideological conflict between Lelouch as Zero and Suzaku. So, I mean, as we have heard, Lelouch is kind of the epitome of ends justify the means.
Mm-hmm.
He has a good goal in mind.
Would that be
He wants-
Machiavellian sort of attitude?
It kind of is, really. It's kind of...
He has good intentions and is paving the road to hell all the way.
He sure is. So he has a good intention. He wants to establish world peace. But on the way to world peace, he's willing to kill millions of people.
Gotta break some eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah, that's his attitude. And
I break the omelet to make the omelet.
on the other hand, Suzaku is kind of this idealist who wants to work through the lawful means. He wants to, lobby for reform and distribute power and all those kinds of things. And
Work
he wants,
positive change from the inside.
yeah, that's what he wants to do. In one of their many discussions over robot fighting, he admits that it's unrealistic, that he truly believes that no real change will ever come of it doing it his way, but he doesn't
can't-
think it's right to do it any other way. He can't justify it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sort of fails in that he's unwilling to compromise his strict operate within the law in order to achieve equality.
Whereas Lelouch is a little too compromised.
He utterly compromises every moral value he may or may not have had in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So you see this, like, the conflict being the two extremes that neither will effectively get you what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a commentary on ideological thinking
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
rather than actually operating by reason. Neither of them are willing to change their position, even though they're readily willing to admit it's
That their
very
position
obvious
are flawed.
faults.
That seems awfully salient today.
Yeah.
Is there any character in the show that particularly
Embodies-
represents like a medium between the two?
No.
No? It's just two diametrically opposed
it's just
sides?
sort of the contrast between
Sure.
the two is the whole. So you can draw a
the-
synthesis yourself.
Yes, that's the point. You're supposed
Right.
to come to the conclusion that, okay, maybe there needs to be some civil disobedience here. Maybe we need to fight
Maybe there needs to
to
be
achieve our freedom in a realistic way. But we also don't want to go committing all kinds of war crimes like Lelouch did.
Yeah, no mind control, no genocides, no faked like assassination
No
stuff.
doomsday
'Cause that's-
devices.
No blowing up Tokyo.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not
Let's
do
not
that.
do a
Just leave-
Godzilla, shall we?
Just leave Japan alone, please.
Japan just wanted to be free, man.
Yeah.
They just wanted to be free. And it's what makes the conclusion really satisfying, in my opinion, because they both kind of come to this realization and figure out a way that each of them can achieve what they want within the confines of their beliefs. Suzaku is operating totally lawfully by, taking out this dictator who's going hog wild.
Mm-hmm.
And Lelouch is operating within his own framework of actually achieving things, even though it comes at the cost of being labeled a maniac and eventually getting assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So he makes the sacrifice because he's kind of realized, oh crap,
I'm at a dead end.
I am at a dead end and I've done some awful things, and the only way I can realistically atone for that is to give up my own life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where that leads you. The wages of sin is death.
Yes.
That's cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose we've started to bleed a little into the
Well,
truth
I have
bit.
more cool
You got
stuff.
more cool stuff?
But I mean, I
I do
guess
have
if you
more cool
negotiated those wages as an individual without interference, then
Yeah.
gotta leave them to it.
I mean, in truth, there's really not a lot of libertarian commentary to this thing, but it's easy to read it into it.
Right? Yeah. It's a fun bit.
Yeah, just don't want our listeners to get the wrong idea about it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you find cool about it?
It's just a really strong, tragic storytelling that doesn't glorify the villainous acts, but doesn't hold your hand to figure out the solution either.
Mm-hmm.
Does it
It's
sort of
just
present you with the weight of the consequences, and then that's sort of how you
Yeah.
divine
Here's the consequences of living and thinking this way. It's obvious that this is wrong, but what you are supposed to do instead is not exactly clear.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there needs to be some discussion about it, some putting some heads together, but don't do this. Don't do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And this other way isn't that effective either.
It's sort of a similar sort of revelation when you just read through history, particularly over the last 150, 200 years or so. Tragedies are really apt to teaching that way, I suppose. And
Teaching by example of what not to do.
yeah, because
Rather than inspiring by example of what to do or
Yeah.
emulate.
because you can always sort of deconstruct and tear down idealistic figures, right? But you
Mhm.
can't really, without becoming morally compromised yourself, you can't really deny moral evil or, things like great atrocities of history, or in this case, political and social movements.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a very, I think that's a pretty realistic aspect of the storytelling method, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the giant robots aren't terribly
Right, but I
realistic
mean,
themselves. Actually, no, they're getting more
The
realistic.
giant
by the day,
robots
never
are
mind.
literally a vehicle for the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people riding them, so.
Right, that's the point. They're literally vehicles for the
But
plot.
it goes to show political ideologies aren't just parlor thought experiments. These bear fruit in death.
Is it the sort of thing where the robot fights are also kind of symbolically linked to character versus character moral discussions and
Ideas
moral
clashing.
ideals clashing? Or
There's some of that. Most of
That's
the
sort of a motif.
the ideological discussions occur over robot fights. So
Little on the nose, but it works.
yeah,
and Also, it addresses this crazy web of relationships within the royal family.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just like, maybe we should like have normal families.
Maybe
Maybe we shouldn't have like 18 kids with several different people and they all hate each other.
And try to establish
and
a
try
dynasty.
to get, vie for their own chunk of the power and end up, hurting a lot of people along the way to get it.
Oh, and they all have hemophilia.
That too.
I mean, because this is a British dynasty, after all, you have to have a little hemophilia in there.
Mm-hmm.
a little bit.
And then there's the kind of discourse about imperialism, which you get through the struggle of Japan versus Britain, even though that was never a thing that happened in the real world.
Insert maybe China or something like that. Other
I mean,
colonialist power.
England was very much a colonizer, and
Mm-hmm.
so they're kind of the one that they chose to pick on a little bit.
The sun never set on the empire, as it were, because they had possessions in all corners of the world.
Mhm. And there's like, maybe don't, even if you're going to colonize, which I don't recommend you do,
Mhm.
maybe treat the people there a little humanely.
As a little more than a number.
Yeah,
Mhm.
a little more than 11.
But don't start a war with them just because they won't smoke opium.
Don't do that.
That's a thing from history.
Mm-hmm.
That was a historical reference.
Yep.
Okay.
Also, big robot fights are fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I like
Always.
big robot fights.
Always a good time.
Indeed. It's a nice dressing for your political discourse.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk politics while we smash large metal robots.
Tell you what, like presidential debates would be a lot better if they had giant mechs to fight in.
Like, just imagine if
healthcare punch.
each candidate was like embodied as like a transformer, and like they just duked it out.
That would make the American political circus considerably more entertaining.
Yes.
Yes, but Japan will be the one to do it first
Oh yeah, absolutely.
because they're the ones making the giant robots at this point.
I'm all for that aspect. Minus the bombing of Tokyo, I think that's a great way to resolve political disputes.
Exactly.
Any other things of note?
There are a couple of criticisms that I have of it.
Okay.
Firstly, is that there is some nudity.
Oh.
It's like actual nudity, not just like the almost that anime likes to push sometimes.
Implied.
But there's like, they do the thing where they're like, oh yeah, they're not gonna turn the camera around here. Oh, they did. Okay, close your eyes, wait a few seconds. Okay, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that usually happens, but they decided to do that, and I said, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you have to do that? That was not necessary at all. That
Seldom
didn't
is.
contribute to the story,
No.
which it never does.
Yeah.
Just don't. Just don't.
Stop that. So be mindful.
Indeed. Any other criticisms? You said a few.
And there was the pacing that I also... I mean, it's kind of the nature of the beast when you have...
Animes and pacing, it's all over the place.
It is. Some of them are brilliantly paced, but, Code Geass is original. It's not based on a manga. So they had every opportunity to pace it exactly the
How
way
they
they wanted
wanted
it to. And the way they chose to do it was inconsistent. They had some really incredible sequences, but there were like some of the, we have to establish, we've got to do robot fights, and we need several episodes to do robot fights and to make this, actually feel a little bit like there's a real war going on here in between our political discourse.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some of that where it's like, okay,
Just a couple
we've-
episodes of just robot fights.
We've just been doing robot fighting. Can we do something a little more meaningful?
Pick up the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because those aren't mutually exclusive. Like, you can have a meaningful fight where it's two things smashing, but then like the whole, the way it's framed in the story
yeah,
can make
it's
it
kind of like fight talk,
Mhm.
instead of making it seamless like they could have done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are good ways to do it.
So yeah,
Those were your...
there end my criticisms.
All right.
Alrighty then. Well, I guess with that, shall we move on to transcendental analysis?
Sure.
Indeed.
All right. So truth.
Truth don't be ideological. Be
Yes.
willing to reason. Be willing to admit that you're wrong. Assimilate new data when you encounter it.
That isn't to say don't have ideals.
No, there's a difference between being philosophical and being ideological. Being a true philosopher means being willing to admit that you're probably wrong about
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
And that sometimes the people you don't like are right.
And just because you
In
don't
some
like
ways,
them,
at least.
Yes.
almost everyone has something of value to contribute to your knowledge and wisdom. And you should make use of that. And don't get stuck in your own ways because you're really, really intent on getting what you want.
Particularly as Catholics, let no man be your master except for God, obviously, like Christ. But like more important, like you can look at different, not ideologies, but like you can try to draw the truth out of different systems of thought without subscribing to any one of them.
Yes.
You know, as long as it's informed by, let's see what's the word. As long as it's informed by morality and I'm trying to think of the right words to say here.
Proper Christian thinking.
Yes.
As Justin Martyr would say, everything that is well said is ours by right.
Well said.
So
It's mine.
All right. Yeah. Give it to me.
Give it to me.
But yeah, so you can, especially in this day and age, it's like if you even listen to what a specific person what has to say, it's like, oh, so you believe in everything they say. It's like, no, I'm just looking for where
they're coming from and what truth they have. Because even the most heinous fallacy has some amount of truth in it. Some question, some
perspective that has value.
Exactly.
Because obviously, like, you can have an extremist, so you can from some particular ideology. The important lesson to be learned is that, well, maybe something is terribly wrong that led them to think this terribly wrong thing, and we should rectify the source of that problem. Don't subscribe or be a follower. Don't affiliate with a political party. Because,
subscribe and follow to the Palladian Papists. But we're not to the plug yet.
Yes. But we're not politically advocating anything here, so you're safe.
I mean, we kind of are, but only insofar as it is focused through.
We are
Catholic
politically
teaching.
advocating that you don't politically advocate for things that fall outside of church teaching.
I thought we were politically advocating for robot fights.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
All right.
we are. All
Full
right.
endorsement.
We'll make
Full
that
endorsement.
concession.
Full endorsement. Yeah. So, don't become so engrossed in a particular person or group or ideology that you would place that above your faith.
Yep.
Anything else you want to draw attention to?
Life do be sucky sometimes.
It be like that sometimes.
Sometimes everything looks like it's going right. You're gonna get a deal that allows you to live in peace, and then you accidentally order someone to kill everyone you were working with.
Sometimes there are
Sometimes things don't go your way.
and sometimes
Adapt, overcome,
Improvise.
And sometimes in life there are people who are willing to cause immense human suffering in order to pursue the ends of their political ideology.
Yeah.
And that's where the real tragedies of life come in. But persevere nonetheless.
Don't be an imperialist.
But don't be an anarchist either.
Yeah, don't be that. No, and that's kind of one of Lelouch's main things. He's like, I hate anarchy.
Now, down with anarchy.
Yeah.
Everybody be anarchists now.
Don't tell me what to do.
Spread anarchy. Don't. That was.
I can hold diametrically opposed beliefs.
This is fine. There's no way I will collapse under the weight of these diametrically opposed ideals. This couldn't possibly go wrong.
I can go to a soup kitchen if I want to.
It's because I want to.
Yeah. Goodness?
There's not a lot, to be honest. Like, it's very heavy on the truth, and that's what it really goes
Sometimes
for.
you need that, I think.
But one kind of standout goodness is Lelouch's care for Nunnally, his younger sister, because she's, of course, not fully able. She can't walk or anything. and he just cares very deeply for her and will do a lot for her. So.
And behind every ideologue, there is a real human being.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And there was that his ultimate end at the end of the show where he does sacrifice himself because it's all there is really left for him to give.
Mm-hmm.
So he gives what he has.
And justice is upheld at the end, I suppose. Like he sort of
Something of a moment of conversion where he realizes that, in a world where you don't have confession to atone for your sins, this is kind of what you're left with.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of a common trope in film and television.
Because most people making film and television don't have confession as an option to them in their
We do, so
belief
go to
system.
confession.
Do that.
Yeah, do that.
So, beauty.
The art style is very unique. It's very different from a typical manga-esque art style because it's original.
Sure.
So it has the liberty to design itself. So the characters are like very angular and sharp. All their features are like, it's kind of, is this like stretched art style.
Very pointy.
It's very pointy.
It's sharp. It stands out.
Yeah. And the use of color very much reflects kind of the mood that it's trying to set. A lot of it is kind of these grays and blacks of, concrete jungle war zones and robots.
But the people are kind of colorful.
The people are colorful.
I mean, pink hair.
Pink hair, green hair. And then when they're at school, it's kind of a much more bright, diverse
warmer
set of colors that reflect the relative safety of, the schooling environment.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like one of the
So
more
you've-
positive portrayals of school in an anime.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
By
got this-
comparison, the school seems pretty darn nice.
Yeah, for once
When-
the school isn't the war zone itself.
Yeah. See previous episodes.
Yeah,
To see 9 weeks ago.
yeah.
And 6 weeks before that.
Yeah, there was some school war.
There's some
zone in
school
that.
warfare going on.
Mm-hmm. Unity.
It's very much united around the idea of ideology and why that's bad.
And I feel like there's probably a lot of films and movies and TV shows that do sort of touch on ideology, like in this sort of way. So it's very much
There's usually it's one-sided deal. There's some ideology that's very obviously bad, and the main character, however it is that they think is good, and there's no opposition, there's no contrast. Whereas in this, the two ideologies are both equally. They're not equally insufficient, I would say, but they're both insufficient, and they're unwilling to compromise. So it's unique in that way.
and probably far more relatable.
Right.
Yeah. The moral of the story is avoid the extremes, and we Catholics are all about that.
Indeed.
So, if you want to be extreme about following this podcast, we will absolve you of that unofficially, so you still have to go to confession. Thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to this Near Occasion of Sin on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Papists. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about the fact that I just said we're a Near Occasion of Sin, or complaints or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com. So yeah, all joking aside, please help spread the chaotically neutral word of the podcast and, chaotically good of the podcast to your friends. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Wow.